And we're live. Welcome everybody to another edition of WORBLI Talks. This time we're trying out a new format and we're doing it on Crowdcast. We're going to continue to do them on Crowdcast. We'll continue to stream them to YouTube, but if you want to get engaged, you want to hear what's going on, Crowdcast is kind of the best platform to find. So make sure you click follow us on Crowdcast to get further notifications of when these are happening in your email. And welcome to another edition. Welcome, Domenic. It's been a crazy week, and here we are again.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, my friend. A pleasure. So a lot of people are probably wondering out there, like what's the latest with the chain? I've got a bunch of questions that we can kind of go over, but did you want to maybe start giving a rundown of kind of some of the progress, some of the things that we've done this week and some of the things that we're looking forward to tackling in the coming weeks?
Yeah, so we're just, working hard to get things done and keep moving with progress on the infrastructure. I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo.
It's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mute when I'm not talking to you, and I think that that's going to help.
Live TV, folks. Yes, that's better. Thanks. So we've got a new portal, and we're working on internal testing right now. It changes the UX to make it a little bit easier to get through the KYC. And we really kind of worked on FIDO to coordinate so that it'll get through their process a little bit better. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry. I'm still getting an echo. It's terrible. I don't know why.
No worries, my man. Just take your time. It's casual here anyway.
Sounded like an idiot because I'm hearing my voice twice.
No worries. For everybody who joined us, thanks for joining us. Mail the questions down from the survey. But if you want to ask a question, at the bottom right beside people, you're going to see the thing that says ask a question. And then you're also going to have the ability to be able to vote on which questions you want answered. I kind of compiled everything from the questions that everybody had submitted about WORBLI Talks. So we do have those to go through as well, kind of following a little bit of an update with Domenic. But don't hesitate to hit that button and ask a question if there's something that's on your mind that you'd like to have answered.
All right. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, so the portal, we're working on that. We're testing it, and I don't know what the timeline is yet. It's just a matter of, what kind of bugs we come across. But so far, it's going well. And we're expecting to launch in kind of stages. We're going to go with the desktop version, and then we're going to go mobile. There's a lot more testing on mobile and making sure it fits all the different formats, different phones, devices. But it looks really good, and really excited about the tech team and the work they did. They took sort of all the feedback we got in the first version and really tried to fix every issue that people came up with. And we're also working on the internal customer service review process. So for people who get any kind of flag or anything, on FIDO automatically puts you into a sort of purgatory. And now we have our compliance guidelines to decide, which are okay and what flags are a no-go. So the team's starting to do some more training on that, working with our attorney, Tom, to make sure that they really understand some of the edge cases. And then also that we're properly documenting. So we have these customer service tools that Rob and the team built that allow us to have, the customer service reps only access the data they have to and not be able to have access to any other data. It's just privacy, kind of information security, doing everything as tight as we can. And it should be pretty smooth, and our hope is that anybody who gets flagged will be able to process pretty quickly too. Those definitely won't be minutes or whatever, but we're going to get down as quick as possible. Basically, it all depends on volume. If suddenly we had 1,000 people signing up for accounts tomorrow, it would probably take a little bit to get through the manuals. But if it's a reasonable, couple of accounts here and there every day, I'd imagine that we'll get through the edge cases within 24 hours. But we are really focused on that. We want to be sure that we're ready to scale, and that when apps start going live and they're doing marketing and advertising and starting to enroll hopefully lots of users, we're not going to have any delays in getting people's KYC done. So that's kind of a lot of different pieces coming together, but it should be a far improved experience. The other thing that we're working on chain-wise is the block producers and the keys to the network and the multi-sig, and we've been working on a sort of secure protocol so that the BPs can start kind of taking that over. And we've been also working on sort of internal governance processes and starting to build out the beginning of a framework for the network-wide governance. But we're focusing on things like voting and removing bad actors. That's the real big one that we want to have a process for as soon as possible. But it's all this sort of progress of slowly but surely starting to turn things over and engage all the different stakeholders in WORBLI and really start kind of like going live truly, right? Like action,
What's your
so the
day-to-day
other
like?
stuff we're working on is with Transledger. And I know that Didier's been very active in our Telegram, which is really cool. But we want to work with them to create the custodial multi-currency wallet. And so this payment gateway he's been talking about is pretty much it. That's, it'll double as a wallet, and we has to add some different features, and going to spend a lot of time working on the security, and which they're really into anyway, because they're building these, DEXs and FX platforms. And, though there should be a lot of money moving through it, and the augmented node structure that's part of their IBC is also going to be potential target. So they want to make sure that's really secure as well. But it's pretty nice progress. Their gateway looks great. And we're pretty excited to start getting closer to some of these features, but specifically the default wallet, and then be able to move on getting the insurance for at least some decent amount of assets to get started.
What's your average day like, Dominic? Like, I know that you just rolled in here back-to-back meetings since pretty much noon. How busy are you? What does your average day look like? And are you tired, or are you still fired up?
I'm excited about this sort of beginning of a new phase. It's just I'm sorry, this echo is absolutely driving me insane. I can't get it to stop. So if I sound like I'm skipping over my words, it's just because I'm getting a 2-second delay in everything I say. I'm excited about the next chapter. The business development company that we're forming is going to make things a lot easier as far as kind of how we can operate, separating out the compliance stuff and the public facing stuff and having that really be in the foundation like it's supposed to be. That should really free us up to kind of run more as a just straight company. And it's hard to describe what that difference is, but it's like being free of a bunch of rules. We have to be meticulous about everything we do in the current environment, and it just makes it really difficult. So I'm excited about that. And that it's kind of recharging to finally be at a phase where apps are eventually, going to start going live here.
Yeah, it is, because it's been a long haul, and getting there has taken a little while. We have so many questions to kind of dig through and things to get through, but it's kind of really like the coming of age for WORBLI is starting to turn some of these apps over and make some of these things happen. I know there's been a lot of people who have kind of echoed that, who maybe said WORBLI is taking their time to launch applications, or there should be something out. But I think that the complexity of a lot of the things that are being built right now, like, we're not talking about simple applications. We're talking about things that are not only extremely complex, but also have some really complex implications in regards to security. How important is it to get these things right?
I think it's critical. Real quick, I was thinking, do you have headphones? Because I think it might be your speaker that's cycling through and causing this.
Oh, excuse me.
But yeah, it's extremely important. Nothing we're building is trivial. It's all kind of, regulated, or there's a lot of money at stake, information that needs to be protected. So if you don't get it right, these things are just, it could kind of destroy the reputation of the whole project. So it's really important that, we get especially some of these fundamental infrastructure apps up and running and secure and high performing. So yeah, it's a slow process. And when you're doing it right and you're, trying to make sure that you're meeting all the compliance requirements and all that good stuff, it's not a fast process. You can't just whip this stuff out. I think Matt's trying to get his set up. I just don't see any other settings. It's definitely a little better when your mic's off.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just keep my mic off whenever you're talking, and we'll kind of do it like that, man. We'll move forward.
Okay.
All right. Was there anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about in regards to progress, or did you want me to start cycling through some of these questions? Or is there anything else that you wanted to kind of chat about? I know everybody's getting really, really excited. There are going to be some questions that we will not be able to answer, and I'm sure that you can kind of explain why, but we will still talk about them as well. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of chat about in regards to updates with security, anything that you're allowed to speak about, partnership-wise, or any of the things that are happening on WORBLI right now?
I don't think there's anything new. It's mostly just focusing on getting these apps live It's ongoing work with the compliance infrastructure and training and everything that goes with that. And then the portal is really the new thing that's going on.
Yeah, it sounds good. I know a lot of people are looking forward to kind of an upgraded portal, and that is something that will be a work in progress. So that being said, I'm going to move into some pre-existing questions that had kind of been asked through the forum. Somebody had asked, Dominic, this is actually kind of an interesting question. I'm not quite sure how much you'll be able to provide at this point, but people are wondering where the liquidity from the fiat gateway has come from, because I know that you've previously spoken about the fact that in order to run this fiat gateway, it's going to take a lot of liquidity. Are you able to talk about that at this point?
I mean, the answer is that we have partners who are, willing to provide that liquidity, but we're not going to mention anything about who or what they are. They don't need to be public, and they probably won't ever want to be. It's just, the proof will be in the pudding. It'll work when you go to cash out, or it won't.
That's pretty fair. So if anybody's wondering, liquidity is coming from partners within WORBLI. We do have those partners lined up, and it's a non-issue. There was something that's kind of been spoken about a little bit inside of the chat and Telegram, and they were asking, is WORBLI committed to a tax-paying fiat on-ramp? Or I'm not sure if that's somebody talking about perhaps a tool in order to be able to gauge your taxes, or if in some way, you'll be implicated in taxes by automatically using that fiat gateway.
I know that it's going to be up to the user to handle their taxes. It's not like we're going to do any pre-collecting or anything like that. I hope to see people build tools eventually that help. I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer application idea where you build an app that will monitor people's transaction history and put in some information about their jurisdiction, and give them an accounting, but it's not something that we'll address directly.
It's a fair answer. Okay, we're going to move to the next one here. And the next question that they asked was, this is kind of an interesting hypothetical, but somebody was asking about how would, and we don't know the answer clearly, but how would an economic collapse affect WORBLI? Do you have any thoughts on that, on how an economic collapse might actually affect WORBLI?
Starting to get, there it is. Okay, we're just going off on an economic collapse, like macro environment, I guess. I mean, the same way it would any business, in that if your financials were not solid, I guess that would cause you a problem. But I don't think we're really dependent on the macro environment. There'll always be people moving money. Right? It's kind of like, do exchanges really get hurt when people sell or buy? I mean, there's usually more volume in a bull market, but at the end of the day, they still get the same fees, right? So we're more just infrastructure. Certainly, if the crypto market itself turned around, I think people would be more enthusiastic about just investing in all things blockchain, which likely opens up funding for apps. And so if the global economy was really tanking, I'd assume that investment funds would kind of dry up, but we'd still be building. I don't think we have a particular weakness or advantage, more like, except that we are infrastructure, so people will still be moving things around and need financial services. So probably a little bit of insurance against that. It wouldn't be like devastating, say what happens to consumer spending, for example, right? Retail gets like totally hammered, and vacations, travel, right? Those places can get really wrecked. So we will probably have a little bit more resilience because, again, it's mostly infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that question stems from like this long going debate between people. There's the one side that said, if the economy collapses, crypto is going to explode. It's going to take off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then somebody else, there's the other side. Well, there's kind of like a middle ground that says if the economy collapses, and that's bad, which makes a lot of sense to me. And then there's kind of, the people who say that an economy collapse would be directly correlated into crypto in a negative way. It would probably negatively affect the market. So I think people were just trying to fish for something and kind of how you thought, an economic collapse would work or might potentially affect crypto. So I think that's probably where that came from.
Okay.
I've actually got a really good question in the chat that I really want to ask because I think that it's kind of an interesting question. This is one, and I'm going to leave you to decide how you want to answer this, or if you do. Somebody was asking if potentially WORBLI would support token price by doing buybacks, because I think that was something that might have been mentioned in the earlier days.
Well, I think it was something that we talked about before around like what would the foundation potentially do with excess capital, right? How would we deal with revenues from these rev shares, and what purposes could it be used for to add value to the network? And that's a potential option. If there was thought that the token was way undervalued for what we had going on, why wouldn't we want to potentially buy back some of the network resources just to redeploy them in a more advantageous way, right? To fund applications or provide resources for them or whatever. So, that was something, but it's not like, I understand, like, people buy tokens and they're looking for returns, and it's the way crypto is kind of, really, it's been crypto's only use case, frankly, let's face it, to this point, was to try to make money speculating on tokens. And I think that people are going to start to understand that crypto is evolving. And projects like WORBLI are, buying in early in some sort of, crowdfunding or pre-sales or things like that is really just getting cheap access. And as a pure speculative play, it's not the best case for that, right? Like, if really your goal is speculation, you probably want something really kind of fast moving and super volatile, right? Like, that's how speculators make their money, on that volatility. Whereas, this is like, again, it's the closest to like buying virtual real estate. It's a place in which things can be built, applications and tools and things like that. And so when you buy early, you're getting it at what should be a pretty steep discount from what the eventual market value would be for that virtual real estate, in this instance, right? A programmable blockchain that you can build all sorts of things on. And then we've got these layers of added value, right? So we've used the EOS software, and that's what EOS mainnet does. So in that sense, if all you do is launch another instance of the EOSIO software, you've just launched another mainnet, basically, right? But the whole concept in EOS from the beginning was this sort of universe of sister chains, and side chains, and all of the flexibility that was built in, in Dan's vision from the beginning, after having built multiple projects, obviously. I think that gets lost because there's so much focus on speculation and not enough focus on the actual value, the true utility, right? The intrinsic value of holding an EOS token. Mainnet's the same thing. You have a piece of that real estate, and every bit of energy that goes into that, whether it's applications and tools that are built or the advancement of the software itself, the governance, right? The energy that's put into that. I mean, that's an asset of that. It's certainly worth more than a chain that has none, right? It's whether you like the rules or not, there was time, energy, and effort put into creating them, and that's worth something. So, in our case, we've added this integrated compliance layer, which is a flat out a big asset because the network absorbs the cost of that AML KYC, where every other application that does it to date pays for it individually. Then there's the value prop of only having to do it once, which makes it an easier user experience, of course. And then there's, optimizations that we're working on to the performance of the chain, which, again, an advantage of being centralized at the beginning is that we can coordinate that. Another advantage of not having BPs who, rotate in and out of spots and positions or active to reserve or whatever is that they can coordinate their energies to improve performance. And so, all of these things are assets and you're just improving the land, right? So you're going from just a piece of land that's wherever. I always equate EOS as, land always starts with the location, right? Where is it? Obviously, land in the middle of the North Pole is not as valuable as land on the beach somewhere, right? But land on the beach somewhere in the middle of nowhere where there's really hard to get there and there's nothing else going on is maybe appealing to the kind of wilderness backpacker type, right? And still has value, but it's not nearly as valuable as Santa Monica, right? And out in LA or Malibu, right? That property is extremely expensive because of the other factors, the climate, the access, where it's located to, the type of facilities that are there, and frankly, your neighbors, right? Malibu is really pure land-wise, no more beautiful or a better place to surf than Ventura County, which is just like another 10 miles up the road. But you pay millions, per acre in Malibu for beachfront, as opposed to up there, it's probably, half the price or less. It's because of the neighbors, it's because of what else is built around you. And so with WORBLI, that's the approach for us, is that we're bringing in all this other infrastructure, and it's going to create a much more desirable, so to speak, location for other businesses to want to be a part of. And it's also being very thorough about the applications that do go live, that they are good neighbors, and whether it's just that they're secure and stable, that they have good business models, that they are compliant so that they're not endangering other people. Because the compliance too is a heck of a lot more, as kind of came up recently. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but it's not just AML KYC, and it's not the fact that you've got just compliant stakeholders and the block producers. It's compliance is really a check mark or a zero, right? If you kind of fail any aspect of compliance, you're compliant or non-compliant. It's pretty black and white. So if you miss any of the pieces, you kind of lose all of the pieces. And so also making sure that the other apps are compliant, so that you're not building an app that's built to interact with another WORBLI app, and now you're doing business with this person and they're not compliant. Well, that could be, you could be dragged right in, because you've been transacting with another company that's not, that's been breaking the rules. So it's a lot of due diligence that goes into it too, as far as choosing basically everyone who's going to be involved in the community as a whole. It's a collective initiative that embodies everything you do and everyone who's involved. So, this whole thing about tokens and speculation, I know it's where we started, but I hope that people are starting to understand that there is a massive difference between a cryptocurrency, right, like Bitcoin, versus a programmable blockchain like EOS, versus projects like Salt, say that's just a lending platform, right? And so that's a fee token. That's even different. So all you've done when you bought salt early on was get a discount on your fees, right? Hopefully, assuming that, it's going to be more expensive in the future. You've prepaid a bunch of your fees, which is still valuable. But is it going to, 10,000x? Probably not. I doubt that they discounted their token that much at the beginning versus what they'll eventually charge in the future. So I think we'll be getting more sophisticated here over time, and people will start understanding that and just be a little more discerning about what their motives are when they buy into a project. If you're just trying to make money, there's going to be projects that'll make more sense for that speculation. And there's other projects that you're buying into because you're going to use the service and you want to get a discount and you want to see it happen, right? I mean, a big thing with Kickstarter isn't always that people are really jacked to get something cheap and early. It's also just that they want to see something created, right? It's like someone's coming up with this really cool piece of technology and they're like, oh my God, I really hope they pull that off. Kind of like you're rooting for them. You're supporting them genuinely. So that's I think, the difference for us.
Yep, it's a good explanation. And of course, like, you've got to be careful due to compliance and other reasons on, which is for the same reasons why we don't allow kind of price chat. And
you kind of can't talk about anything. It's pretty intense, and it's not solid. So you have to basically go ultra conservative for the most part to try to protect everyone's interests as best you can.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. It's a weird environment that we're working in right now. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you are free to kind of deal with them as you can. And they're like the dreaded questions that I know we both hate, which are the when questions, the when this, when that, right? But I still have a duty to ask them to you, and I will allow you to kind of answer them as you feel fit. And there are a few when questions, and some of them will make sense and some of them won't. When apps, when demos?
When apps, when demos? Soon and soon. We're pushing to get stuff live. Nobody wants to see stuff go live more than we do. And to the earlier point where we talked about just the complexities and the thoroughness and everything that it requires, it just doesn't lend itself to, quickly getting stuff out there. I know that, Tokenero's definitely due in early May here. I don't have a hard date around that, but we just had a meeting to make a few decisions, and the movement is to get it live and bring some iteration to some of the features. So that certainly kept it from being delayed, but that's kind of also what happens. I mean, the best example was that conversation, and that the direction that they were planning on going in with one of the features from the beginning. This industry moves so fast that there's actually new technology that's come out literally in the last month that is much better, but they'd have to effectively redesign a ton of pieces that are already done to accommodate this new tech. And I mean, when do you draw the line? I mean, in blockchain, you can get to the point where you'd never go live with anything because there's always a better version of something coming out at this stage, So we had to draw a line on that one and just say, nah, we need to go live. It'll be good as it is, and then we'll bring in this feature. So, that's the ongoing thing. But I certainly think that we're really close to getting some things live. There's a few other things we're working on to see if we can get some potential demos out there, but I don't have a signed deal on this particular application yet. We're still in discussions, and we're figuring out how best to work together. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we're trying to move as fast as we can. I can't wait until a bunch of stuff goes live so I don't have to answer that question ever again. Definitely.
I know, man. I feel your pain because we've had a lot of personal conversations, and I know how badly you do want to launch apps, and I know how badly you want to see this happen. So I can attest for that. They are coming, but then again, like we kind of talked, like you see Block One and a lot of the smart companies doing things a little bit differently. They're not announcing until everything's ready to go, and that's one thing that you kind of recently said. Hey, look, I'm not going to give you any more false dates. I'm just going to get things up. I'm going to get them rocking, and they'll unfold as it is. So I understand. I think that's the way that smart companies do it. That's the way that big, large companies, technology companies, whatever else, they you want to stop the hype. That's what you're doing. Things are coming. Be patient. Bear with us. Now on to another one of the fun when questions, and this one is a little bit interesting to me. We talked a little bit ago about the possibility of a new exchange coming out, and my thoughts are, I'd love for you to elaborate on this, or at least comment on them. Whether or not there's an exchange at this point right now is, in my opinion, is relatively, and I'm not trying to cover your butt or whatever else. I know you've got some plans for exchanges, but I think it's also kind of irrelevant because I think that you really want to build value before you throw it on an exchange. Like putting something onto an exchange just to try to bump the price is kind of a shady tactic, and it's not really delivering any more value. And ultimately it's quite likely that your token price will even suffer for it by exposing it to a larger audience without having any solid things. But we did speak about the possibility of a new exchange a little while ago, and I wanted to leave you a little bit of time just to speak to that.
Yeah, so we were in conversations with a third exchange. It's just, frankly, we've just gone back and forth about the fact that they want a listing fee, and we're not going to pay listing fees no matter what. If I had $1 billion, I wouldn't pay listing fees because I think that it's on its face flat out wrong, and it's borderline illegal, and it's a practice that just needs to stop, because instead of exchanges seeing listing a token as adding value, right, which is what's their product? Their product is allowing people to buy and sell various digital, assets, cryptocurrencies and tokens or whatever. And to me, an exchange should be looking for the best quality projects it can. And obviously think about demand. Understandably, they make their money on volume, so they want a lot of interest, but that's what it needs to be about, right? It should be each exchange determining kind of what their guidelines are for the quality of the projects and the potential for there to be a lot of action around trading the token. And if all it takes is for me to buy my way onto an exchange, then I think that kind of breaks the process for everyone. And it specifically is just catering to and kind of almost screaming for scams, which is what we saw in 2017, is that there was a very clear formula for those of us who were working, kind of, we'll say, on the inside of this industry. I mean, we saw it unfold over and over and over again. I would say that in 2017, there was a very clear playbook, which was you needed about $3 to $5 million. And if you could get that money, you created a white paper, you found some sexy idea or concept that, everybody would go crazy for. It's what I call like the Coke machine in high school. It's like when you're running for high school class president or class, student council, you promise stupid shit, right? That everybody knows the administration is never going to allow you to do, but we're going to expand, recess, or we're going to, everybody's going to be allowed to, leave school whenever they want. I mean, it's kind of nonsensical stuff. And, you came up with a sexy idea. There were entire companies you could hire to write a professional white paper for you, and then basically you spent $1 million or so on marketing to just get the word out about your project, and you ran an ICO, and then you immediately paid to get listed on Binance or, one of the high volume exchanges, and cha-ching. And what did people see happen? Founders just cashing out, taking in a ton of money from these ICOs and then cashing out their tokens to the next sort of layer of unknowing people. So the exchange game is also very broken. and it needs to be fixed, and we're not going to play into it at any level. And the same can be said for the applications that are currently in development that will be, allowing trading, like Utility X, or I know the platform that Didier's team is building around their DEX, right? One of the big draws for WORBLI is that the DEX can process transactions on chain in real time, whereas these Ethereum DEXs are stuck with the 15 TPS or 20, whatever the heck Ethereum is, and if there's thousands of orders, they get queued, and they can't be processed until, they can't actually be processed on chain until, however many blocks, and it just destroys price action, and then people can go to the front with gas, and there's this whole thing that just came out about all of these DEXs that are being front run by bots, and that people have. I don't think the average cryptocurrency buyer realizes how much money's been pulled out of their pocket. Even if they've made money, they don't realize that they would have made twice as much had they been in a fair system. Now, would you be getting the same level of volatility in a totally fair system? Maybe not. But it's rampant, and it's just accepted. And again, because people have mostly made money, so nobody was complaining. And then when you get into a bear market, that's when people usually start digging and trying to figure out what's going on. But, the guys that are working in the teams that are building stuff for us are all, very experienced in, financial trading and investing. And, we're building stuff that's resilient to cheating, essentially. And there's some really innovative stuff that people are going to see, and they can know that there's not going to be any wash trading. There's not going to be any fake volumes. There's not going to be any front running, insofar as we can, they're closing as many of those loopholes as possible, or making them extremely unprofitable. If it's a particular thing that just you can't entirely prevent. It's the exchange game is just not, it doesn't align with our values, and we have really great plans in place to generate real true liquidity for the project, and I'm not worried about it. I know that's important. I won't deny that liquidity is important, but it needs to be done in the right way, and I feel confident that we've got smart people building compliant, fair routes to liquidity.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. Of course, I did that video. It was actually you who recommended me the blockchain transparency.org, where I really started to dig into some of this trading. And what people don't realize is I can attest to what you're saying. So here's the deal with the exchange. They said, we want some money. And Domenic said, get out of here, in polite words, probably. But I've been approached by people, of course, because I've worked with numerous projects, WORBLI Tribe, whatever else. So I've been approached by people, hey, you can buy this package deal. It's $75,000. You get onto the top 3 CMC exchanges. And just to verify what you're saying, people don't realize that in a lot of these exchanges, not only is there wash trading, but they're also stealing your liquidity. You become the liquidity pigs for bots, which are run by the exchange, created strictly to screw you. So I can attest to what you're saying. Personally, I think that the organization is better getting some real products up, getting some things happening, than having the exchanges come to you, because people are ultimately interested in your project, or at least having some real value to be able to bring to those exchanges. So I get it. I understand. It would be nice to be listed on CMC. I know that that's going to happen, but why don't we build some value first? So I think that that's a pretty good answer. Okay, well, somebody had asked if WORBLI was going to be attending potentially any meetups, or maybe doing kind of, I remember, previously we had kind of spoken about you maybe doing like a little bit of evangelizing for WORBLI and going out to kind of meet people. Will that be taking place over this year? And what are, some of the plans for that, or where's your head at regarding that?
Yeah, right now we're not obviously spending any too much time on that. It's just a total focus on building, getting things live, working on the infrastructure. There's a number of technical features that we've been working on that we haven't talked to anybody about at all, and we're looking forward to that. The money's just spent on development at this stage, really. Understand there's events and there's definitely value in being out there and having some presence and doing some networking. But like any company, you need to think about who you're getting in front of, right? And the clients that we are looking for are not at blockchain events. Enterprise businesses are not, to this point, so far as we can tell, in high numbers or high quality, going to blockchain events to find vendors, right? To find the technology that they want to use. I'm not saying they never do. I know some do, and they do go to some events, but for us, it's just not the best spend right now of our resources, both time and money effectively, in that we're not sitting on piles and piles of cash, and it needs to be allocated directly to create value. And it's just a more intangible value doing the events. Now, Sean, our director of business development, lives, on the West Coast. So he was able to kind of shoot up to the EOS World Expo last minute. Kind of worked out for him. And, we had an opportunity to go and talk to a bunch of projects that we want to be working with, and so it was really business development, and that's the focus. So I may go up to Consensus this year, but I'm not going to be buying a ticket to Consensus. I would just get a room locally in New York, and it would be there to talk to projects and to try to sign some deals and close some deals. That's the focus for us. So for the time being, not seeing a ton of value in flying around and going to events. And remind, I would imagine people understand that these events take energy too. It's not just about the money. It's not easy for me to effectively continue to drive, projects forward internally with the team when I'm traveling all the time and I'm hanging out at events all day, and just the back and forth. And with technology, you can get a certain amount done while you're sitting there in the airport, but it's not the same as what I can get done when I'm home and I have my full setup and I can, work and write and conference. And so it's very resource heavy. And again, I know a lot of projects have kind of almost made a career out of just going to every dang event that they can get their hands on, but I don't know that they've really thought, through why they're doing it and what the ROI is. I take it very, very seriously that people have supported this project financially, and that I want that money to go to exactly what it was meant to go to, which was building WORBLI.
That's a really good answer. I agree. I can attest that traveling while moving is not a good time. I recently spoke to Ash Oro about it too. Said if you ever need to do anything, you plant your butt at home, and that's where the magic happens. Not when you're trying to jam a McDonald's breakfast down your throat while you're running to catch your next flight and you get 5 minutes to hit the laptop. So I totally understand. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I'm going to move away from these questions. We have a couple of questions. We'll come back to them, but we have a couple of questions in the group which are kind of interesting, or at least I thought so. Okay, so I'm going to start. This one's pretty straightforward, but are there still going to be referral bonuses and extra activities that were planned before the share drop? And I'm not even really sure what that's kind of referring to, but and Joel asked that. He said, just asking to know what's the best time to onboard my social circle. Well, I guess that's kind of an interesting question. Are there going to be social incentives maybe in the future to get people to create accounts on WORBLI, or is it going to be the apps themselves that are going to be driving that account creation? Can't hear you.
Is that
You're
better?
good now. Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
We gave everybody the 30% or whatever that had been withheld for potential like marketing or promotions of any kind. And so there isn't anything specific planned around that. We do expect the user onboarding to occur as a result of the applications going out and doing their own marketing to attract users for their business. And so, in order to create an account for the app, they want to use the KYC in the WORBLI portal. So automatically a WORBLI account gets created in that process. So that's really the vehicle that I see for the foreseeable future. It's just it's also another tricky thing in that I don't think a lot of projects sought a lot of counsel around things like bounties, but we were told very specifically to stay away from those. That it's sort of one of two things. Either it can be perceived as being a payment for work, in which case you should be reporting it, tax-wise, or it could be seen as promoting, token price, and particularly, kind of messing around and violating that whole thing. You don't know necessarily where some of these people are posting things, like, right, a lot of bounties are just around awareness, right? Talk about our project and promote our ICO or promote our token, it's just it's not something that we can really do. So I will say that in time there will be, as some of these features get rolled out, there'll certainly be a lot of value to just having a WORBLI account. I think, again, the multi-currency insured wallet and some of the other features that we expect to roll out over time will be valuable. Not just have access to the WORBLI blockchain, but to hold your tokens and assets from other chains, or to interact even with other chains. We really expect there to be a kind of a robust feature set eventually. Things like being able to send funds peer-to-peer and things like that. So there'll be a lot of good reasons just to straight up open a WORBLI account on your own, but I would say the bulk of it's likely to come through applications.
Okay. Again, a fair answer. This is kind of interesting to me, and this is something that we've talked a little bit about. Or maybe we could even, I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but it's a good question. Because we've talked about data markets and all sorts of things that are really going to make WORBLI very unique in a lot of ways. So there's a question that's somewhat related to that, which I think ultimately ties into that. And that is, how granular will the user's control of their own personal information be? So will it be a yes or no, provide my info to the dApp, or will it be gradual controls? So for example, provide only name, location, like how exactly is the information exchange going to happen in between these applications? And then maybe it's kind of also an invitation to talk about some of the data market stuff that we've been talking to. So I'll leave you to that.
Well, we really want to get the controls to be as precise as possible, ultimately, where users can completely decide which what data they're going to release and what data they won't. I'll say that for the time being, there isn't anything that in the capacity of having the possibility for users to share data. We wouldn't roll out a process where the user doesn't entirely control the permissions, right? There's no scenario that we're talking about or will talk about where users' data would ever get shared without, one, them knowing, and two, them approving, right? So that's just out. WORBLI is not collecting data for any purpose except a potential compliance review. That just for legal reasons that we need to keep a copy of the documents that users use through that process, and that's it. And for now, it's just being sort of salted away and unretrievable. It's literally like just keeping a healthcare, a medical patient's file on tap for 7 years because you have to, in case they ever, wanted access to it. But we're looking into ways in which users would be able to track data and find a reasonable way to store it. The EOS software as it stands now is not fabulous for storing large amounts of data. It gets extraordinarily expensive quickly. We've seen some of this even with the history nodes. In how that's about the size and everything of it, but it's just there's not good solutions for storing data on chain at this point, and so this stuff would all need to be stored offline in some way, shape, or form. And we're very mindful of security and the risks associated with that. So. But the hope and the plan is to very much get to a point where there'll be a secure and reasonable way for users to create something akin to like a verified profile, where they can share more precise information with applications as needed, and also, be able to just track, their own interactions on chain, just data about themselves. I mean, I sort of envision and hope that at some point somebody's going to build like some AI or machine learning tools where I can opt my WORBLI account in and let these tools sort of monitor everything I do on chain and eventually be able to give me good objective information, like just feedback around maybe where I should be putting my money or not. We're seeing some of that sort of robo advising, right? That's been getting more and more popular in the traditional investment space. And you've got apps like Betterment or whatever that, do some of this stuff. And you've got funds that are investment funds that are using, things like AI and machine learning to choose their picks. And so, I'd love to see those kind of tools eventually available to users. And I definitely want to see data marketplaces. And, if someone else doesn't build it, whenever I could personally get to the point where I might be able to fund or get involved in a project like that, I'd be all over it, because I firmly believe that users need total control of their data, and users need the opportunity to monetize their data, because depending on what you look at with artificial intelligence and machine learning and its ability to sort of start wiping out large sections of the job industry, one of the things that may prove to be valuable, where people can drive a reasonable income, may just be their data. Because of course these machine learning algorithms, they're only as good as the data sets, right? I mean, that becomes like the fuel. I could have a decent machine learning algorithm, and you could have an amazing one, but if I've got 20 times the data that's gone through mine, my machine learning algorithm is going to beat yours at the same task, right? So, and I just think there's, if done well and done with the consumer in mind, this can open up just a world of useful and helpful information. I mean, just, the amount that we've been able to learn about ourselves as a species in the computer age is phenomenal. And we certainly don't want to get to a point where no one wants to ever share data, because either they're afraid that they're getting sort of ripped off and monetized behind their back, so to speak, like basically the Web 2.0 model, right? Which is to kind of mine you for your data and give you free trinkets on the front end so that you give away your data for free, Facebook, Google, whatever. There's a real opportunity here for fantastic research. And again, just kind of like getting objective feedback about yourself, and far more than finance and health and everything. And it would just, I hope that this is something that we solve collectively as a population, which is sort of fair, safe, and private way for users to track their data and be able to control and use it, for whatever they want. But it's a huge asset.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I kind of liken it, and I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I won't dwell on this for too long, but I kind of see it. Originally, you're going to have your account designation. This person is, has been verified in the WORBLI KYC, or this person is an accredited investor. Will there be any reasonable reason other than the fact that this person has a WORBLI KYC account? We know that they're a person. When we're first starting out and somebody goes to use an application, will that application even need to withdraw in that database, or is it going to be more of, no, this person is a known identity, we do have the paperwork to back it up, and it'll be kind of at their leisure to input their own data into particular applications? How do you kind of see that unfolding at the start?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the apps, but I mean, the initial wave of apps, just that we're the trusted third party that's verified that every user on chain has been, verified by the AML KYC process is enough. It's a sort of a, yes, they're verified, no, they aren't. But there will be apps that need, specific data for the users. And again, we hope to get there. It's a complicated problem, but it's something we've been working on for a long time. Or, the apps will just have their own process for that. It might be that you need to upload a utility bill or something to prove your address, But so far, it's just WORBLI's the trusted third party, and we just basically assume that liability that this person has been verified. Because the thing about identity and all of that is, and again, folks don't. It's that if something happens, you have a way of going back and tracing it to a human being, right? As long as nothing nefarious is going on, it doesn't become relevant that anybody needs to know who you are. It's only when something goes south, He was saying, I'd like to know before you use if the app, no app was going to get anybody's info ever without you knowing, ever. It's never going to happen. And nobody on WORBLI is looking at your information, past it, whether or not there's a manual review of your account, and we'll have it documented who has looked at it and when, and every single piece of this is protected and verified along the way. And then that stuff's gone, no one's looking at your information, no one's sharing it. We are doing everything we can to reduce any possible risk there. It's the last thing we want. Our project is not about collecting your data.
Yeah, I'm excited for the data market. I think that being able to monetize that would be something that'd be really, really neat. So I do hope that either somebody builds that or that you build that yourself, because it's kind of a cool concept. And I agree. I am of the opinion that our economy is changing at a rate that people are about to get a major wake-up call due to automation and due to AI. So there are going to be a lot of valuable resources. And believe it or not, cruising around in the way that you use your WORBLI account is a valuable resource. And I know it's not your intention to ever give that information away in any which way, shape, or form, but should you want to monetize that, I think that that'll be a pretty cool option in the future, with, of course, people's permission. Got another recent question from the chat here. Are the current apps being developed copyrighted in some manner? Does WORBLI have input on copycats and a possibility of them arising? Also, where can I get a WORBLI t-shirt?
All the apps have their own IP rights, and they'll be protecting themselves in their own way. Again, maybe some people are under the impression that we're building apps. We're not building apps. They're all built by third-party companies, and so yes, they have total copyright protection. I know there's this big thing for a while where some of the other projects were making a big deal out of the fact that there's copyrighted code. I'm like, of course, no shit, there's copyrighted code. Like, why wouldn't there be? I get that EOS mainnet's got this open source, concept or whatever, but that's EOS mainnet. We don't. Everybody's protecting their IP. We protect our own IP as best we can. But that's really ultimately up to the apps to handle it.
Very cool. I'm gonna dig into some more of these questions here, but I think that maybe it might be better, and I'll leave you to it, to do like a little bit of a blanket statement on. There's a lot of people out there who have been, saying malicious things. I'm always kind of shocked because I don't know how people find the time to get malicious or to focus as much energy as they do on other projects. But a lot of people also say, if you pardon the terminology, we're going to get a little ghetto here, but if you don't have haters, you're not doing it properly. You know what I mean? Or nobody cares. My personal opinion, and a thing that I've stated a lot inside of the chat room, is that I would really love to see the community come together and not worry about what anybody's saying, or not worry about, of course, like I mentioned earlier, it's very good to be objective and to ask questions and to have a little bit of healthy skepticism, not just, as I coined it, drink the WORBLI Kool-Aid blindly. But there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to say things. I don't understand how it's a positive use of their energy. I feel like I barely have time to brush my teeth in the run of the day. But there are some people out there who are saying certain things. I would prefer that the community didn't, I won't tell anybody what to do, but I think that just to take the high road and just kind of let things speak for themselves. And then I just don't think that there's I don't see a lot of utility in engaging people, and because they don't want to be convinced, for one, and it detracts a lot from what we're doing. So just in regards of, there's a ton of support in the community, but some of the things that are going around, I'm going to give you a quick second to kind of speak your thoughts on those.
Yeah, it's just standard stuff, right? Like, there's no reason to pay attention to people who are, just kind of have an axe to grind, or want to try to, they don't like the project for some reason. That's great. That's, it's their prerogative, but it's of no importance to us, we're just focused on getting stuff built and done. I mean, if there's any response to that, it's to just excel at what you do and, keep heading in that direction. People are obviously upset. A lot of this stemmed from the share drop and the decisions that we made at the time. I stand by all of it. They were the right decisions at the time that we needed to make to move forward and to move on and create value for the people who are engaged and who've put in their hard work and time and energy to help WORBLI turn into something valuable. So, it's just kind of par for the course, I guess. In crypto, there's a lot of people who don't produce anything worthwhile. And so they want to try to find ways to get attention. And the easiest way to get attention psychologically in human society is with negativity, right? It's what attracts the most attention. We're hardwired for it. It's the old adage that everybody knows in customer service that, when you have a great experience, you usually tell like 2 or 3 people, right? When you have a terrible experience, you tell 8 to 10. I was taught that lesson when I was like 14. I was selling snowboards back in the day in 1988 at a local ski shop. And I was a typical like 14-year-old kid and thought I was real badass. And this woman came in to buy a snowboard for her son, and I was really just snotty with him, because anyway, it was just, being a moody teenager. And the owner just like pulled me right over and told me that whole story there, and I've never forgotten it. But it's true. And so, people are gonna try to get attention. They're going to try to get clicks or views or whatever, whether it's that they've got a channel that they're trying to make money with, in that case, or sometimes people just like attention, right? They just want, Facebook's entire existence is built around getting attention, getting people to click that like and get you a little dopamine boost because you're suddenly important, at least in your own mind. So yeah, ignore it. It's just not relevant.
I totally agree. And it's also like it's a little bit of a disease too. And it's one of the things that's wrong. Like I really think that different entities can do different things and can exist. And I think that if you take the time to, they're looking for a fight and they're looking for attention. So if you divert your attention, you're really giving them what they want. And it's okay for other things to exist. I'm very much of the thought that that diversity is key, and that other people can do things. And then the people that do things that are aligned in the same way that you're aligned, you can work with. And then, it's not relevant. It's a waste of time. Don't try to fight anybody. You guys don't have to convince everybody. I love all the passion and I appreciate all the support, but at the end of the day here, I guess WORBLI is about building something that really matters, and it's going to happen. So I think that to give them any focus or even give them the fight that they're looking for just isn't it's not a worthwhile thing. And it's just, negativity is a disease. It makes you feel gross, makes you maybe sometimes feel good when you're spewing it, but it's just filling a void from other issues that you have. So I would propose that the community doesn't engage, you know what I mean? Say your piece, and other things can exist. They can be different, but don't allow their issues to become your issues, and don't allow their personal hell to be your personal hell. Just do your thing. Healthy skepticism is fine, and we can coexist with everybody, and a lot of them we can work with. Debit cards. We had a question about debit cards that were asked. WORBLI debit cards. Is this coming? Is this happening? It seems to be something that's coming up quite a bit.
There's definite pathways for the issuance of debit cards. It's understand foundation is in charge of the network. We're not going to be issuing debit cards. We're not going to be creating anything like that. It's just not doesn't make sense for us to do it, but there's definitely projects that are looking into it, and it seems to me it's going to be a kind of a no-brainer for a project to provide that option if they want to. We've had conversations in the past with some of the major credit card companies, and they don't have any problems with it. But what people should understand, and why it's going to be a lot more feasible for WORBLI, is that the credit card companies are concerned with AML. And because we'll have an anti-money laundering program and sort of oversight, that's what will enable it to be possible. I know there's lots of crypto projects that have done debit card plays or promised to do them, and oftentimes they're just using third parties like Treezer or some of these other companies that will act as like middlemen to let you issue your own debit card, but that's not going to the source, and they're also very expensive. Visa, MasterCard, these folks will work with you directly as long as you have an AML program.
Perfect, my friend. So I am going to ask you a couple more questions, and I'm probably going to let you go because we're running a little bit wild here. So I'm going to kind of give you, somebody had asked, and I'm just going to maybe summarize what I think the answer might be, and then you can comment. The advantages of WORBLI over a dApp token DSP that uses KYC. And I believe that the advantages WORBLI will be, kind of as you coined it, the last KYC you'll ever have to do, whereas using a DSP could potentially be, many different KYCs plus having the compliant chain, which you talked about. There's a lot more to it. Is there anything that you wanted to comment on that, or did I kind of hit the nail on the head?
I spoke to this earlier. Compliance is so much more than just KYC. It's not something that can be just done in an application layer, just flat out. It's just people not having extensive knowledge in what truly makes for, a compliant financial transacting and all of that stuff. It's not just KYC.
Excellent. Okay. Another question that we had, we already spoke about that previously. So somebody was asking, I shouldn't ask you this, but I'm going to. What information on, you're going to hate me. I'm getting fired for this, guys. Remember that. I did this for you. So everybody's asking about B1, and I know that you've kind of said just about everything that you're prepared to say. You mentioned that there was an NDA in place, and it's become kind of this thing. And I almost feel bad for Dan Larimer because he's getting jumped by everybody every time he comes into the EOS chat, asking some by people who are very supportive and some by people who are not supportive, and trying to, what is, I guess an NDA means it's a non-disclosure agreement. Is there anything else that you're prepared to add to that, or are we just going to kind of set that to rest and just let the cards fall where they may, and for things to come out as they should by, decisions from the appropriate powers?
I'm going to say, please leave Dan Larimer alone. He's got plenty of work to do, and he doesn't need to be concerned with WORBLI. It's not, it's just not relevant. He's got a lot of stuff going on, WORBLI's part of the EOS ecosystem. We're trying our best to just contribute to bringing, EOS to people's consciousness, to businesses, to enterprises, that it's a great solution if blockchain suits your use case. And we hope that we're going to help discover lots of use cases over time. Block One's focus is on EOS, and that's what they do. There's no, they're not going to focus on any particular chain, right? It's about the software as a whole, so that's the concern, and we just contribute to the ecosystem like everybody else.
Fair enough. So leave Dan alone, and the rest will kind of, whatever that might involve, will come out in time. So yeah, I know a lot of you guys are excited, and I love the enthusiasm, but just the cards will kind of be revealed as they're supposed to. The last question that I wanted to ask you was, for anybody who is kind of sitting back and they're expecting this massive, they're expecting kind of announcements and hype and whatever else, and that's not really like the avenue that you're trying to take here, I guess. So I guess you're looking to build slow, steady progress. And I guess for anybody who's expecting some sort of, these are actually created on a transparency level so that people are able to come in and talk to Domenic and be able to ask questions, and for Domenic to say, like, this is what's going on with the chain and this is how it is. So good things are coming. I feel like it's going to be a heck of a summer. But what might you say to those who are kind of expecting this meteoric hype train fireball to explode out of the atmosphere, and all of a sudden the token price is going to hit $100?
We just, we're in a phase that's about infrastructure building. It's just slow going. There's just no other way around it. Eventually that will change, and a lot of this stuff will be in place and things will pick up, and there'll be a faster time to market for applications and features. And it's going to get there. It's just one of those times of sort of general perseverance and patience. The things that are being built just have to be done right. They're foundational, right? It's truly the foundation, just like a house. If they're built poorly, everything that comes off of that is built poorly. And it won't be of high quality, it won't be compliant, or it won't be properly functional, or it won't be secure. And so it has to be slow, combined with the fact that we didn't raise millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I don't have a huge team that can work super quickly to build this stuff. A lot of things need to be done manually, you know. I'd love to have the budget to grab the portal and just send it out to a third-party auditor and have them rip it up and test it up in a couple of days and just send us back a nice little sheet of bugs that they found, you know, and fix them up. But we're not in that point. So it'll happen. It'll get there, and then I think there'll be a lot more to talk about. Well, my hope is that you know, these talks will eventually kind of evolve into a lot more about governance and those sorts of things. You know, engaging in getting feedback from the community and having some real lively discussions about you know, how we want to, you know, manage the chain going forward collectively, and you know, what we want to sort of continue to build together and those sorts of things. So it'll pick up. You know, it's just a little slow right now.
Yeah, and but so was EOS mainnet. I mean, that being said, how long did you play Pong? I know I played Pong. I think it was EOS Authority, where I sat there and I played Pong for like 2 months, just poking it, like, do something. And I know it's coming. Like, I mean, I know you're trying to downplay things right now. I know what's going on in the background. I'm fired up. I'm amped up. And for me, the biggest victory in me being, you know, a small part of WORBLI would be to be a part of making some apps that can really change the world. And I mean, like, a lot of the stuff that you talk about, and I won't get into it, but the access stuff, really creating things that have the potential to change lives and create things in other countries. Like, I know what this technology can do. I know what it's going to do, and I know it's coming. So we just really appreciate your support. It will come. It is happening. Just kind of baking the pie right now. So it's going to be a good summer, and we really appreciate everybody sticking with us. Domenic, I know how busy you are. I know you don't want to admit it because you're the Mr. CEO. I know how hard you're grinding right now. I know how hard you're going. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. Guys, we appreciate all the support and everybody getting having you as kind of part of the journey moving forward. So without further ado, I will let you go, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you in a few weeks.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.